As you know it, stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rotten about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
Thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And they got away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed it is. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It's a scientific fact that we're all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Episode 370. Trying out this new 2-week schedule. Going back to the 2-week schedule, and boy, let me tell you, it's a bit of a challenge for me. But here we are, of course, providing the quality content that you can only get at the nearly 10-year-old podcast known as Protonic Reversal. Before we get into my guest, the incredible Zach Blair, who's Rise Against GWAR, Only Crime, Anti-Heroes podcast, and also a little bit called Hagfish that I was more or less obsessed with as a teenager. And I'm looking forward to talking about all that. But before we do any of that, you know how this operates. You know the vibes. The name of this show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I am your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer who's been touring and recording for 24 years, most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life, and I use the format of this very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect, but who may not be household names. This is episode 370. If this is your first time listening to the show, archives of it are available for free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding, at protonicreversal.com. However, if you want to support the show and get episodes sooner, $1 a month at patreon.com/protonicreversal will achieve that goal and also help support the show. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to like, subscribe on your platform of choice, share it around on the internet, and even leave a review. All that helps people discover the show. It beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. It's just a darn nice thing to do. So Zach Blair, right? I feel like if you talk to like 10 different people, they'll have 10 different answers of where you know him from. But who am I to talk? You Rise Against, Only Crime. The Anti-Heroes podcast is great. I found out about him being in GWAR through my friend Randy Randall, a former guest of the show, and I'm a former guest of his show on the Hyphenate podcast. Very excited about that, and many things, not the least of which is Hagfish, which I was more or less obsessed with as a teenager. I'm very pleased to bring to you Mr. Zach Blair. Zach, welcome to the show, man.
How you doing? Thank you so much for having me. It is quite an honor. I listened to your podcast, and I had just listened to the Rob Wright episode.
John Wright.
I mean, John Wright. Jesus Christ!
You got the right wrong.
Well, what's funny? Yeah, right. What's funny is I have a brother that was in Hagfish with me, also.
Yeah, of course.
And is now in the band the Toadies, and people get us mixed up, and they call me Donnie, and they call him. So I just did that exact thing. So
I'm sure, just like you guys, I'm sure it's not the first time that's.
Yeah, it's not the first time. But John Wright, Jesus Christ, what a great interview that was. Man.
What a great musician.
I'm also learning from you because I just realized on my own podcast is very similar to yours, where I interview guitar players that aren't household names and guitar players that I like. And I just launch into it. I did notice with yours, you always give your spiel. You talk about the basis of the, what it's all about. I don't do that, and I should do that.
Can I tell you, I didn't used to do that. Okay. And I kind of took pride in not doing that for some weird reason. Everyone does that. And then I noticed when people would do like a drive-by, which is what I call them, when they just pop in for one episode and they, don't, then they would have no frame of reference of any kind.
Right.
So I was treating it as if like, okay, it's just the people that listen to this like every week. yeah, it's me. Yeah, it's me. I'm the guy. I'm doing the thing. But like without that, people would like people didn't know I played in a band.
Right.
Which this started as a side project for me. Of this like, yeah, I'll do this. This will be fun. And here I am like almost a decade later. But like I realized, okay, the utility of having that, what do you call it, pre-roll, right?
Yeah.
And doing it before it's over, because sometimes people, the second that the person they're done listening to is done talking, boom, gone, deleted, moved on to the next thing, or whatever, however they. So you kind of have to introduce people in, and then there's a kind of warmth and familiarity that can kind of come with that, I guess.
Sure.
I try to keep it succinct, you know what I mean? But like, I think I feel that the strength of this show is that I don't just interview musicians. I am one, just like yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
And you get a different kind of conversation that way, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't know that, you might be like, oh, who's this impertinent bastard? What's his
Right.
What's his whole deal? So I don't know. I'm not going to speak to you. I think your show gets boom right down to business.
We get down
immediately.
to business. Yeah.
I've heard your Randy episode, obviously,
Okay.
and then other former guests of the show on my side. Little guy called Steve Edgerton, who's, of course I'm going to listen to that. And I realized I said almost the same thing you did in there too. It was like, oh yeah, you're a guy that like you instantly know when it's you playing.
Yeah.
He's got that immediate, like any band. It's like, oh, I know who that is.
Absolutely. And I interviewed your also a mutual Dale Crover.
Yeah.
For being a guitar player, which he was so into. He's like, thank you for wanting to talk to me about guitar. He's a great guitar player.
Can I tell you, we were it was when we were tracking the Protons and Electrons comp. I don't remember what were we. Oh, I do remember. You know WKRP, the show WKRP.
Yeah, sure.
The end theme that
Yeah.
I was like trying to figure that out, and it was like maybe the 19th song we recorded. Like I took us down a rabbit hole that I swore I would never do again with that many songs. But I just like for whatever reason was having like a brain block.
Yeah.
And Dale was like, "Oh yeah, let me give it a try," and he like, got it like immediately. I'm like, son of a bitch. And I'm like, am I the third best guitar player out of 3 in my own band?
Right.
Fuck.
Right. Is that
sucks.
song also? That now that I'm remembering that song. Is that song are the lyrics just gobbledygook?
It's nonsense. That's why I wanted to do it, because they're nonsense words. It's just like it's all there like phonetically. Like
yeah.
I mean, like somebody like did like a kind of funny animated cartoon that was like what they interpreted them.
Really?
Yeah, which is, I mean, this is like years ago, but like
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah,
see that.
But that's why I just remember, because it's like if you ever see Dale Crover band, it used to be Altamont. Like I used to before I ever played with him. I used to go see him play in Altamont, and I was like, God damn, he's a really good guitar. Like it's not. He's like one of the greatest living drummers in rock and roll.
Right.
But he's also a great guitar player, which is like, you son of a.
And that's why I wanted to exactly, and that's why I wanted to interview, because I thought that that's such a distinction. But I mean, Dave Grohl also, one of the world's greatest rock drummers, and the whole thing. But yeah, we had a really good, and I do a riff video for all my guests, and I chose one of his songs, and that was really fun to do as well. And he actually liked it on Instagram and stuff. I'm still such a fan of all this that it doesn't matter how long I've done this. When I meet guys that I've always admired, it's still a big deal.
Yeah. How long have you been doing the show now? It's like less than a year?
No, it's
a little over a year.
Oh, jeez.
I could have done any research whatsoever, but I didn't.
God damn. It might be. No, it's over a year. God damn. It's so funny you're asking. It might be coming up on 2 years.
Okay, cool. Awesome. I mean, you've done like a good amount of episodes. Like it's.
Yeah, we have, and we're coming up on the 5th season. I record them in advance, and then, we do like 8 episodes, and then we take a break for like a month or something.
Well, that's like Joe Plummer's thing, right? I feel like all the podcasts on that network do that. Like
absolutely,
which is funny. I feel like I now that you're in here, I feel like I know like everybody on that network now. Who I haven't had on is freaking Joe Plummer though, which is hilarious. Which I probably
do you know Joe? Do you know Joe?
I do. I mean, like I know
he's
him
great.
Like friends of friends, like a billion friends.
He's great, and it's just a real cool platform. Just like there's some really cool podcasts on that is Ruinous Media for those of you
Ruinous Media, right?
That aren't involved. But yeah, I'm really I did Joe's podcast, and then he just kind of pitched to me like, "Do you want to do a podcast?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Yeah, how about it?" And it is very similar to yours, because. There's those same guys that get talked to when you're talking on any guitar magazine,
right.
whatever. It's the same 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
And I've always thought guys that had their own corner, no one ever interviewed really John McGeoch from, magazine or Keith Levine or
Keith
somebody.
Levine.
Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I do know what you, and like I was so beyond when I got James Williamson of the Stooges on this show.
Amazing.
Knocked me over with a feather, right? And I was sitting there, and I even was like, FYI, we're gonna turn to like Guitar Player magazine for a minute, because I was like, what did you use amp for? And he told me, and I was like, oh my god, amazing. Yeah. But I think it's an interesting show because you have a genuine excitement about the people that you have on.
I do.
But you are talking to people that maybe they get talked to about stuff, but they don't get talked to about like guitar stuff ever.
Right. Because, I mean, look, with the type of music that you and I are, I guess it's not cool when it's anything like cool music, punk music or punk adjacent music.
Right.
It's not cool to talk about gear. It's not cool to talk about, actually practicing and knowing how to play certain things. It's like, it's everybody's does it into it. We all love gear, but it's like, it's not cool to sit around and talk about gear. But I think it is, I'm this like on this other end of it where I still think that shit is really cool. I'm really interested in it. And so I try to take people, that normally wouldn't be on some platform talking about it because it's not cool. And just go, come on, motherfucker. Let's talk about this. What did you use? What do you have? What are you excited about? And because it was such a metal thing to talk about your gear. It was so,
right,
you know what I mean?
Totally. And to hear someone like John Schmerzel from Brainiac, like, just like, well, I know that dude. Obviously, I've had him on the show a couple times, but like, I'm like, wow, I didn't know like half that because it just never came up in conversation.
Exactly. And I'm gonna ask him. I'm also metal too, so fuck it. I'll push him.
Well, and it's interesting to find the, in some cases, sort of a hidden background for people. I mean, so my friend Dave Pajo, right? Like the fact that he was a secret shredder.
Yeah.
Where it's not so secret if you pay attention to his discography, but like no, that dude like.
Right.
Shred Master General, like amazing. Right. And I feel like he's one of those guys that there's so much to talk to about it that like, you're going to miss those kinds of moments. And it's cool because, okay, so I feel like the Descendants loom large in your life, as they do with mine, right?
Sure.
And that kind of comes into how I know you at all, which is literally through Hagfish, which in high school, I obsessively listened to Buick Men.
Wow.
And Rockstar Lame Ass.
That's crazy.
And we had our little group that like we would go to the car at lunch at high school, and we would blast a record at just ungodly volume through like a mediocre stereo system, we'll just say.
How old are you?
I just turned 46.
Okay, I'm 50, so I'm 4 years older than you, and so I was a teenager as well, and it was our band in high school, it was my brother and I quit high school for Hagfish, and what had happened is the Descendants guys, they were all at that point, and we were obsessed with them, Descendants and all, and everything on Cruise Records, which was the label that was putting them out, and they produced a bunch of those bands as well. So we just wanted to be a part of, we had like FOMO. We wanted to be a part of that world so much, but we were Texas, we're from Texas. And we got into anything we could that was sort of counterculture. So, so my brother and I had like really been into death metal and thrash metal and stuff like that for like since like about 84, 85. So I was like 12 or 13 and we're buying like Pestilence records, or Dark Angel and shit like that, Possessed. Yeah. And then it was just, punk as well. It was also Melvin's records. It was also, it was just whatever we could get that other people didn't listen to.
And so to sidebar real quickly, the stuff that we would blast in the car, there was no rhyme or reason to it. It was totally like, we're playing Hagfish, we're playing Butthole Surfers, we're playing Sonic Youth,
right?
We're playing,
and you're from the Midwest too, right?
No, I'm actually from Modesto, which is the Kansas of California.
Gotcha,
basically.
Gotcha. Yeah,
but I lived here. I moved here in 2017. But
okay, gotcha.
I mean, but back then, without having the instant availability of all music all time, like it was sort of like discovering anything, you would really lean into it, right? You would really like. Zapruder film it, like examine it.
Absolutely. No, and that's a great
Texas
analogy.
Reference.
And you're right. Yeah. And that's a great analogy. And our dad was a radio DJ. He was a classic rock radio DJ. So he had this really great music collection, a really great taste. And he was into the heavier things, acid rock and psych stuff. And so we were in all of his stuff, all of the classic rock stuff, you know, I mean, but even like Robin Trower and, you know, shit like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, Johnny Winter, being in Texas. You know.
So you're growing up around music. Like there's music
Yes.
around, but isn't necessarily your music. Some of it
Right.
maybe
Right.
you vibe with, but it's not coming from your generation or your sensibility.
Right. And so metal was our thing, but then we discovered SST records and all of that, you know, wonderful greatness. And the Descendants resonated with us because we were dork kids, you know, and we did not fit in. We got beat up, and girls didn't like us, and so they sort of spoke to us. And we started our band, and it was a different lineup, but it was still called Hagfish. You know, I named the band when I was like in science class, and they played. So all played, and we went and met them, and we started sending them our tapes, and lo and behold, they loved our band. And so at the time, a label out of Dallas was signing all the Dallas bands. And Dallas was a really weird scene at the time because no band sounded the same. It was really cool. But that was at the time when like whole scenes were getting signed because of Seattle. You know, this is like 92, 93.
Everyone wanted to find the next Seattle, right?
Right.
And so there was like this gold rush mentality of like, oh, there's all these bands we can scoop up over here. No one's looked at this city yet.
And so a local label wanted to put out our record, and that was Buick Man. That ended up being Buick Man.
Yeah.
And so that was like 93. I was like 19, maybe 18, 19. And, you know, we went through we got a different drummer during that record who ended up being this genius, brilliant kid that is still one of my best friends. But it just started happening. We got an agent that started booking us shows, and we just started touring. I quit high school, and because we had made friends with Bill and Stefan before from opening for them, we got signed to a major. We got because majors were now descending. It was like
they wanted their own Nirvanas, so everybody could be their next Nirvana. Well, these guys got the look, so they can.
And, exactly, and this was like Green Day and Offspring were now happening. So now everybody wanted a punk band.
Yeah, right.
And specifically a pop punk band, which if you had to pigeonhole us, we were trying to rip off the Descendants, but it was, you know, whatever. And they had just all had gotten signed to a major as well for the same reason, to Interscope, and they sunk all of their money into the Blasting Room, which is in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Which what a wise decision, by the way. Like, just like
for sure.
When a lot of unwise decisions were being made, to put it bluntly.
Absolutely, those guys always had it, you know. And so Hagfish was like the second or third band to ever record there.
Yeah. And
we did a major label record with them, and it ended up being Rock Chili Mass, which really had a long, we did it, and Hagfish broke up in about 98. And now I get asked about that record all the time, you know?
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Well, and I feel like, so Hagfish was definitely, the alignment with the Descendants was pretty obvious. And the fact that it's coming from that perspective of, this is young men music, you know, that they're, you know, they're not talking to girls. And if they are, it's not the kind of girls that share their interests. And there's a certain frustration with that. Right. I feel like there's always going to be an audience for that every year.
Yeah.
Every year.
I think you're right.
If it's good, you know what I mean? And in the same way that there's always going to be someone that buys that first Ramones record and is like, what is this? What's happening right now?
Absolutely.
And or Minor Threat or whatever, you know, whatever Black Flag, whatever your corollary is. So it's gonna be relatively timeless as long as it's recorded well. And there isn't, you don't know whatever the equivalent of like auto tune on the vocals would be back then. I don't know,
right.
But it sounds like a band in a room that like is like, wow, I bet that's a killer live show.
Yeah.
And so it's not surprising to me that people would kind of find it absent of any context and find something there, because like catchy tunes are catchy tunes.
Sure. Yeah. And you know, for that ilk, there was those other bands that were sort of like Descendants wannabes as well as, I wear that proudly.
Right.
It was, you were only worth your salt if you had good songs, because you were trying to be them and they had great songs, you know, so you had to have a pop sensibility. You had to have, sort of a singable, hummable song, you know? And so I was glad I had that sort of early on, that tutelage of like, okay, well, this is not memorable, so let's just can it. You know what I mean?
Right. The guitar riff may be great, but nobody cares. Like this
Exactly.
song, it like doesn't fly. It doesn't do what it needs to do.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because you had also, because they were, I mean, there's a couple singles in there. There's like Stamp, Happiness, right? And,
yeah.
But it never really, I mean, I think it ended up at like maybe 120 minutes or something.
It did. We got there like 2 or 3 times, and it was marginal. It was like in certain cities that added the singles, we did very well.
Right,
we did really well in Seattle. We did really well in Boston. We did really well in LA. And we toured constantly. Like the 90s were just touring Hagfish. That's all it was. And we went to Europe a few times. It was great. And it was, literally my family. It was my brother was the bassist, and those guys were my best friends. And so it was just like, again, I quit high school for it, and it's all I've ever wanted to do, And so it unceremoniously broke up in about 98. Our singer had a kid early on, and then he had another kid. And so then it was just kind of like, okay, the writing was sort of on the wall.
Was there any kind of mindset? Because of course everyone wanted hits then, right? I
Sure.
mean, basically, first 3 songs of Buick Men, first 3 songs of Rock Your Lame Ass, same songs.
Same songs.
What's the idea?
Yeah.
Like, well, these songs are we love playing them. People love them. Like, let's just put a better recording together. What was the mindset there?
Honestly, Bill and Stefan wanted to record a lot of those same songs, and those songs, that Buick Men, had only come out in Dallas. So if it had gotten outside of like Texas, it was but people actually driving, it somewhere else.
Which is crazy. I don't know how we ended up with a copy of that.
I don't either. I really don't either.
But we did. It was like I said, it was a hit in Modesto.
It was not like nationally distributed. It just wasn't. And so,
Yeah.
and I mean, if it was, I had no,
It wasn't something, right? It wasn't something that you knew.
It wasn't a
knew
major
about.
distribution. It was probably just like, let's send 100 copies
Sure.
of this to some record stores and wherever.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of that. It was like, well, fuck, these songs are good, and why not just try to get them out on? Because we signed to London Records, so it was an international release. So it came out in England, it came out everywhere. There's Japanese imports of Rock Your Mass and everything. So we were like, well, if we're really swinging for the fence, let's put our best shit on here, because that was only a year apart, maybe 2 years apart.
Yeah, it's pretty quick succession as far as that goes. But I mean, there was a lot going. I mean, they had like what they did Meat Puppets, right? They did the big Meat Puppets record.
Yeah, they
if
did.
I remember correctly.
They did.
And I mean, lots of Bananarama, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I mean, it was like
there was a band called
huge label.
There was a band called the Mises that got signed with us. Remember the Mises?
I do remember the pieces.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So the same guy signed us, signed them. Yeah, it was like it was a thing. It's weird. People that owned and listened to Buick Men. That was like the first record. I met Scott Lucas from the band Local H the other night, and he approached me and was like, I was into Buick Men. Like he wasn't into Rock Your Lame, he was into Buick Men. I was like, Jesus Christ, that's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way until I was just like, oh, whatever, this record's good too. Like, but it was in that way that like you when you find something, whether it's obscure or not, where it's something you have to kind of put some effort into to get in there. At least it used to be that you would develop more of an attachment to it almost.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, like, it would be like, I still remember, that Black Flag record is great, but it's really, the first 4 years is really where
Right.
it's at. It's like the same, like every
Right.
dude says that, but it's like, you feel that because you're like, well, yeah, but I had that on a cassette I got off this dude. I didn't even like him, but I taped his record.
Right.
Some involved story that goes on for forever and doesn't have a beginning, middle, or end with it.
Well, because it means more, it
Right.
means more to you because no one else is into it. It's like your own little secret,
It's like the sweat equity of music fandom.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's interesting, like that. I mean, because all right, there's a bigger platform, right? So there's a bigger platform. The band gets to kind of explore being on a bigger and like, nobody knew what was going to happen. It's like, oh, maybe this will go crazy. Maybe it won't. But let's put our best foot forward either way.
And it didn't. And we toured our asses off, but it just didn't catch on. And so we got dropped from London Records, and we had toured by that point with no effect. So Fat Mike had Fat Wreck, and he had this offshoot label, Honest Dawns, And there's a bunch of labels at the time that were sort of smaller that offered us deals that ended up being bigger labels. I remember Vagrant Records was offering us stuff, and they became big afterwards, and they were like owned the 2000s, and we turned them down. And then, anyway, went with Fat Mike and made the second record, which is just self-titled with Bill and Stefan as well. We had made that record already with an 80s producer named Bo Hill, who had done like Winger and Warrant and Rat and all that stuff. And the label, they dropped us because of that. They were like, look, make your record with this guy. We stake our career on it. If it doesn't work out, you can redo it with Bill and Stefan. And we made the record, and he slowed everything down, and he made like riffs. It sounded like Hagfish as Rat, pretty much. Seriously,
it's a weird sounding record. Yeah.
And so we didn't like the record. He didn't like the label hated it, and they dropped us. And then we just made the record, remade it with Bill and Stefan. So.
That's what there's there's like a They Might Be Giants cover on it, if I remember correctly, right?
Twisting.
Yeah, which is a great tune. I mean,
but no, I'm saying like those songs had been through a different lens on a record that never came out. Like,
gotcha. Okay.
We had done, and then we were like, because he was like Mr. Producer, he just like, just follow my lead, and he had all these ideas. He was a big arranger and stuff, and it just wasn't us, and we let him do it because we were kids. We didn't know any better, and then went back to Bill and Stefan and made that record, which I love that record, but other people that were Hagfish fans didn't really like that record too much.
That was good. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I think I might have worked at the record store when it came out. It was like 98 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 98. It was 97, 98, something like that. Yeah. Because I joined GWAR shortly after we broke up. Yeah.
So that is so fascinating to me. And because that's a band that, like, I just remember my friends, it was my best friend's brother who was like the older kid, right? He's like, you gotta go see GWAR, they're amazing. You don't wear clothes you like because they'll be splattered with blood and there's dismemberment. And it was like, oh my God, that sounds horrifying. Like, I was like, I had no frame of reference to it at all. And I was like, I'm just gonna get as far away from the stage as I possibly can and watch this band. But then I was like, oh, okay, so it's like, I get it. Yeah. Like I was honestly, and I don't know why I felt this way. I honestly thought it was going to be like a like Genitorturers or something.
Yeah,
I don't know, like real. Like, and I was like, oh, it's like kaiju. This is like Godzilla versus like King Ghidorah or something.
Yeah, absolutely, it absolutely is. Yeah,
but it's so hilarious that to not have that frame of reference and not be like, I'm expecting Gigi Allen or something.
Yeah.
It's closer to like Kiss with a puppet show or something. Like Peace and Love.
Totally, totally is. Well, the bassist lived in Dallas and he loved Hagfish. So he would come to Hagfish shows, and he had been in Dallas's like the seminal speed metal band called Rigor Mortis.
Okay.
And their guitar player got like cherry picked by Al Jorgensen, and he was in Ministry at this point. And his famous guy, Mike Scascia, who has died, he was a kind of a mentor of mine and just the best lead guitar player there was. But anyway, so Casey, his name's Casey Orr, he had come, he was a Hagfish fan.
That's awesome.
And so I saw him out and I was just like, dude, Hagfish is breaking up. I was like, it sucks. Well, GWAR's guitar player at the time was also a Dallas guy, a guy named Pete Lee. And he had gotten Casey in the band and blah, blah, blah. Long story. All incestuous Texas shit. And so Casey was like, dude, I don't know if you can play speed metal or death metal or thrash, but like we're kicking Pete out, So we're going to be.
And he didn't even know you had like a metal background.
No.
At all.
Well, no, he did. He didn't, only because I had told him like how much we loved Rigor Mortis.
Okay.
And we had gone to see Rigor Mortis open for Slayer in like 87. Our dad dropped us off at the gig, my brother and I.
Oh.
And I know. And so he knew I had told him but he didn't know I could actually play it. He didn't know that.
It's one thing to listen. Yeah, like totally. So like I like listening to Slayer. I can't play it like Slayer.
Right.
That's my vibe.
Right. And so he knew, he really did, he was putting a lot on the line.
Right.
Because they flew me out there and to Richmond, Virginia. I could have just botched the whole fucking thing, but I took it really seriously. I had went out to LA to like call in I was looking for a gig. Like I had quit high school.
You wanted to, stay with doing music, even if
Yes.
it couldn't be with Hagfish.
By
right?
hook or crook. Like I was
Sure, yeah.
I know it's really at that point, you know, I had been doing it for almost 10 years. It's all I knew how to do.
Right.
You know, it's all I did.
From high school.
Right.
which is
And
crazy.
I had a GED, you know, so my
Yeah.
my prospects were bad. So I just didn't see why I couldn't keep doing it, you know, like why not?
Yeah, sure.
I didn't think, you know. So I'd gone to LA and stayed with a friend for a few weeks and just washed out. It was like, I tried calling in favors and gigs and people. Do you know of anybody? You know, I'm out here now. I could come, and it just didn't work out. So I got back to Dallas, and almost like the first night I ran into Casey or out, and he was like, dude, we're holding auditions. I'll throw your name in the hat. Sure enough, they called, and I don't know why he vouched for me. He did not know that I could play, you know.
This is rolling the bones. This guy seems all right. Yeah.
But I got the gig, and kind of didn't think it that far through. I didn't think I would get the gig, you know.
Yeah.
And got the gig, and so, you know, now I'm in this big rubber monster costume, you know, and I was in. We did. They had just put a record out, so we toured that full record, wrote and recorded a record together, and then we're touring that, and I quit because heroin started coming in, and it started becoming a thing. And so it's funny, side note, I went back, I quit the band, did bands, joined Rise Against, everything. The guy that replaced me died. And then I went back and made a record with them called Battle Maximus, which was just got a 10-year anniversary, which is like, goddamn. I
know, right?
Yeah,
I feel like we all owed a mulligan from COVID, frankly.
It's
like,
crazy, man.
why don't we just say those years didn't happen?
Yeah. And so that was like touring Rise Against. I would come home and then fly to Richmond, Virginia, and like I was in the room with GWAR again. And that ended up being Dave Brocky, the singer's.
So it was the last one, right? Yeah, if I remember it. Yeah.
I'm so grateful. I'm not grateful that happened because I loved him dearly, but I'm just so grateful I got to play with him on his last record. Yeah. And it looks like I'll be doing some stuff with them in the future as well.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So, yeah. It's always like, they're like family, you know, it's so much fun.
Well, and it's kind of turned into almost like a collective, really, you know, like a revolving sort of cast, you know, people come in, come out. And it's interesting that it isn't just the knowing how to play the songs. It's you have to play it in this unwieldy, boxy outfit.
Dude, it's insane.
And there's so much going on. There's so much just activity and antics and fluids.
Too. It's dangerous, you know, like you could get shocked and people can't see you and they can hit you. I got hit in the face with like so much shit, you know, props and everything. It's nuts, man. It's not.
What's the most random collision or crazy thing?
I walked off the wrong side of the stage. Like all the band went one way, I went another way, and we were just doing an encore. So the side I went to was dark. And it was fine. I was just like, I'll just stand over here until we're going back out. But I walked into sort of like a void, and my leg, you know, I fell down, and I have these huge dinosaur heads on my shoulder pads, and the dinosaur head caught the other side of, like, my leg was down a hole basically. And I was just rolling, you know, and it's like 60 pounds. So it's really hard and unwieldy. So the band went back on stage, and I was in this like void rolling, and I had to, and they couldn't hear me because I'm fucking yelling, and they're already making noise. Finally, somebody saw, I was like throwing my arms up in the air, and somebody came over and tried to help me, you know, had to help me get, it was terrible. Yeah.
That sounds horrifying. That sounds like an actual nightmare.
Yeah, you fall on your back, you can't get up. You know, you're just turtle back.
Right.
You know, yeah.
I keep thinking that's in Spinal Tap. You know,
yeah, basically, it was way Spinal Tap. But you know, kind of like everything else of my career, it's one of those things where like there will be people that are like, they have never even heard of Rise Against. They have no clue, no recollection. But then you say, "Well, I was in GWAR," and they're like, "Oh my God, you were in GWAR? What?"
Yeah.
You know, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was it's funny what percolates. Like I just had a Steve Bartek Oingo Boingo on.
I saw that, and I was thinking, like, man, you're slumming with me. You had Steve Bartek last, because goddamn, what a genius!
He's so great. He's so, and like that's one that like Lindsay, my wife, she loves Oingo Boingo. She was actually like stoked, and like she so rarely gets excited. about people I have on the show. But then like when I mentioned you were in GWAR, she's like, "Oh yeah, GWAR." Like she used to work at a venue. She's like, "Yeah, that they were cool." Like she's like, "Oh, didn't know any of the rest of your bands, but that's the one she knows." But it's like
Steve Bartek, man, Jesus.
Yeah,
it's a real deal.
I mean, dude, that dude started in the Strawberry Alarm Clock playing.
I saw that, and I've watched that. Ain't This the Life from Erg the Music War? That performance.
Yeah.
I've watched Erg the Music War 1,000 times.
Oh, it's so good.
Or a billion times. But their performance on that Ain't This the Life, that song. And I have a question for him because that is not their normal drummer in that video, and I want to know who it is because there's no I'm a dork like that, and I can't find out who this drummer was that was in that live performance. He's fucking amazing. But it's not the regular guy. If you go to the Wikipedia page, it's always been their guy, the same guy, and it doesn't even say that this guy. I could be wrong, but anyway.
Where were you last week? I could have asked him.
I know.
I'll put you in touch. You should have him on your show, man. Like he's a guitar god.
I would. If you could hook that up, I would. He is, yes. Okay.
I know a guy. I'm the guy.
Good. Okay, good. I'm gonna hold you to that.
No, but it's weird what percolates over into this larger cultural. And GWAR is one of those things that like even non-music people like, oh yeah, that band that like they can't even explain to you what it is, but they'll explain like what some of the characters look like or something.
Right.
And they'll have a framework because it's this again this beyond larger than life, this like manic explosion of creativity and foam rubber and like I said, fluids flying everywhere.
And it was music is a musical theater.
Musical theater. That's a good way.
You had to know your marks, and we all had lines, and there was a show that happened every night. It was scripted. There was things that it was the same show every night. I'm so thankful and amazed that I was a part of it. That I got to be a part of it. I'm so lucky. I've told this story 1,000 times, but we were on tour with the Foo Fighters with Rise Against, and it just same like this. Just in conversation, I just said, when I was in GWAR, blah, blah, blah. And Dave Grohl was like, "You were in fucking GWAR?" And he was
right. Yeah.
And then we were best friends. He took me to his dressing room where he had his computer. He had like 30 windows open that were like GWAR YouTube performances that he was going down a rabbit hole.
He was just looking at GWAR videos. That's awesome.
And he was like, which, is that when you,
Yeah.
Because when I was in, it was before sort of like cell phones and
right.
So there's not that much documentation about me. There's 2 concerts on YouTube that were professionally done that were going to come out as like home things. And one is called Blood Drive. Mm-hmm. And one is called, oh, God damn it. I can't remember the name of it, but anyway, and
there's another kind of produced effort that's going to
one of them is like 6 camera angles. It's really cool.
Which if there's any band for that to happen with generationally of that generation, yes, that's the band that it should be.
Yeah. Wait, one's a Blood Drive and there's another one called the Something Campaign. But anyway, so those are me. But it's also hard to tell sometimes if even I'm looking at myself because. The character I was, the guy that replaced me, he was that character. And when he died, they killed the character. And so there's a guy that I looked kind of like. So sometimes I'm like, I think that's me,
And it's hard to, and like, it's like a VHS or something. And somebody copied it off of Buddy and like, it's horrible resolution.
Yeah.
The autofocus is screwing up when they move to a different angle. It's all just deeply messed up. No, but it's something that's a part of like if you're into music as a culture, like punk rock, whatever you want to call it, like everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to go see GWAR. It's going to be awesome. Like everyone, but then also it's not like playing in the Rolling Stones or something, right? Because because again, you're playing this literal character.
Absolutely. And for me musically. Stylistically, I've been all over the place, but that's how it's like you and me just said earlier. It's how I listen to music. It's what I listen to. Rise Against I've been in the band for 17 years, but even when I joined, it was like, okay, this is great, but this isn't what I want to do solely for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? It's what I do the most of, for sure. But I've started 2 different projects while I've been in the band. I I have future ideas I want to do as well. It's like I think musically I'm sort of a philanderer, not philanderer, I don't think that's the word, but you know what I mean?
Musical gigolo?
I'm a musical gigolo. Yeah. I'm a musical gigolo. A polygamist? Would that be the right word? Yeah.
Musical polygamist is probably,
yeah.
strangely enough, probably the best term.
I get around and I want to get around, you know,
Yeah.
I think it's this communication we all have, you know, and I want to keep doing things, you know.
I get that. And it also makes sense because if you're someone who, like, ultimately your career is being a musician, then you are going to want to play music. And it isn't necessarily that you always want to play exactly the same kind of music. I mean, I suppose they're your Johnny Ramone types that just, you know, don't
exactly
specifically didn't practice so he wouldn't get any better, which is amazing to me. It's like, okay.
It's nuts. It's just nuts. You got guys like Zach Wilde or whatever, and he's got Zach Sabbath, just a Black Sabbath tribute that tours all the time.
Yeah.
And then Black Label Society and Pantera and Ozzy, you know, and of course all those bands are very similar.
Pantera, and I forgot about
I know. All of those bands are similar, sure, but I envy that. You know, I'm like, man, that must be so fucking rewarding and cool that you're not just, you know, you are kind of getting around in all these different sort of folks.
And if you burn out on one of the things, then say, oh, don't worry, I'm going on tour with these other ones over here.
Exactly. Now he's gone constantly. I don't envy that so much. I do like, you know, my home time, but man, as far as just the music output, it must feel so.
Mike Watt's kind of like that too, you know. I mean, with bass, but like I definitely I love MSSV, but until I saw Mainstream Soft Valve, like I was like, oh, this is so different. Like, and this is Mike Baghetta's thing, like, because he's a shredder guitar player, but in that Nels Cline, like, oh, what are you doing kind of way. And
it's another guy I'd love to have on. It's Nels Cline. Jesus.
Oh yeah. I adore those Nels Cline singers records. All the
great,
so good.
But
like it's like, oh no, he still sounds like Mike Watt, but this is Baghetta's band, and like it brings out a different side of him than it does if you're watching Mike Watt in The Second Man or whatever. And then he's just a dude that lives to play, and he's so good at it. So why wouldn't he, right? But
and that's I'm not definitely not comparing myself to Mike Watt, but I do live to play, and I think it would be so I don't know, just stifling if you were just in one thing, you know. I mean, even Dale Crover, you know, he's got he's in Red Cross now. He's got the Melvins, he's got his solo records. He's, you know,
he plays with me and he gets something totally different out of that than he does out of the rest of those bands,
he's got the thing with exactly, you know. So I think that is the only way to be, in my opinion. You know, I started a thing with Walter Schreifel's called Vanishing Life. I have a thing called Dracula's with my best friends here in Texas, and it's
Dracula's plural.
Yeah, Dracula.
That's a great name. I love that.
Dracula. Yeah, it's with a K. It sounds like the Dickies, Devo, and the Buzzcocks.
Stop right there. You've made the sale.
Yeah, I have to send it to you.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and if you are, how often do you play? Are you an everyday player kind of guy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm an everyday practice. I like a guitar in my hand kind of thing all the way. Yeah. When I'm watching TV, I'm just noodling and driving my wife insane. because my hobby, it's still my hobby too, and my hobby is to like play metal, like shredder lead shit that I never use. It's like knowing long division. You know what I mean?
You're not going to use it every day, but if you need to, it's right there. Yeah,
I don't get to use. You know, the very end of the Rise Against set, I get to sort of do a big dumb lead guitar solo.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I needed it in GWAR.
Yeah.
No other band have I ever needed it, but I like knowing it. And it's one of those things still where I'll see like a lick video or a riff video, and I'm like, damn it, I want to know that right now. You know, and I just need to get it, you know. So that is my hobby. I don't have hobbies though. I don't, other than, you know, I don't golf.
Sure.
I don't fucking camp. I don't, you know, that's all I do.
Yeah. But they're also, I feel like there's like two strains. The other strain is someone that, like, if they're not practicing for a thing, like, oh, we're going on tour with this band, then it's right over there in the attic or the spare room or something.
It's like a tool. Yeah.
And that's probably more my deal. Right.
Sure,
but like, sure. I find it interesting because I think, like, there's no wrong method, right? The only right method is the one that works for you.
Absolutely. Because there's people that don't need to practice all the goddamn time. And you know, as far as like what I do for a living, my job, like actually Rise Against. Yeah. I need to practice that set before we go on tour. But you know, if I wasn't a person that was obsessed with guitar playing, I wouldn't need. You know, I mean, you get to a certain level with your ability where you're like, your limitations, and you know how what you can do and can't do. I just still find it's fun.
You like it, right?
I
well,
like
exactly.
it. I really enjoy it. I feel weird if I don't do it because I've been doing it for as long, since I was 9 years old, and I also like if an opportunity comes up because I get asked to do things. I like having certain, knowing certain things.
You have tools in the toolbox that maybe if you're not using them every day, you can pull them out as needed musically. No, that's
being in Austin. A lot of my friends are blues guys, and so during the pandemic, I took online Berklee classes for like advanced blues, and I like.
First of all, I can't believe that's a thing, but I'm so glad it is.
It is.
That's amazing.
I have a Berklee certificate for it somewhere.
Right.
I do.
Yeah.
And
degree in advanced blues from the Joe Bonamassa School of.
Basically, yeah, Jesus. But
peace and love. Coming up next week, Joe Bonamassa.
Exactly. But so I like knowing that. I take jazz guitar lessons, country lessons, or whatever it might be. I definitely. I also like disproving that stereotype of like, punk rock guitar player. It's like we were saying earlier. One of the greatest things about punk rock as a genre is that you can only know a bar chord and change the world, like the Ramones.
Sure.
But you can also be, John McGeoch or somebody that is a brilliant guitar player and also be a punk rock guitar player.
Look at Stefan. I mean, like all that single note stuff he did, like it's like I was chasing that for years. Be like, what is he doing there? Like,
absolutely,
I have no idea what's happening, but it's fantastic.
That excellent, example.
Yeah, but the idea that like musicianship and punk rock are like, a Venn diagram that there's no overlap for. I mean, that's preposterous at this point, especially. It's the year 2023,
It's true.
I mean, it's 2024. Jesus.
Yeah. Billy Zoom, you know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
And so that's why I always wore sort of like a badge of honor, saying, I'm a punk rock guitar player. Yeah. And whereas other people might, whatever.
Well, I play in this punk rock band.
Exactly.
I have an advanced blues degree, so I really am more of a.
Exactly. I wanted to be a guy that like, I wanted to be one of those guys that I idolize. Not that I've gotten there, but I just, that was my goal,
Well, and there's something to be said for influence kind of in developing your own style, right?
Sure.
Like in to a certain degree, unless, and there are exceptions to prove the rule, but unless you're playing, you're not going to develop your own style. Like,
right.
And that used to be something when I was a younger man. I was like obsessed with it, and like I was frustrated because I wouldn't get there. And then when I got there, I barely noticed. And people will point it out to me, and I'm like, oh, I guess so.
Right.
All right. But
it's just what you're doing.
It's just what you're doing, and it's always going to be unique to you because you're coming in with your set of experiences. You're coming in with your set of skills with the songs that you've played, the songs you know, the songs you love, the songs you like have aspired to and don't quite get there with. Where you're like, oh, that's good, but it feels wrong somehow.
Well, and you were lucky because the band you have is your band. For me, I did such hired gun stuff sometimes, which Rise Against started that way, and GWAR started that way. I was stepping into bands that were already very established.
There's a sound. There are songs that in some cases people are expecting to hear, and they expect it to hear a certain way, and you're being a short order cook.
Exactly. And so bringing what is you, in quotes, to this thing, it's really hard if you can at all. You really just need to sound like the record that's already been done by somebody else.
Or you're going to be letting someone down, which is the worst thing in the world.
Exactly. And then the inevitable comment of, when the new guy came in, whatever.
Yeah, it was great up until Zach Blair showed up, and then it all's downhill.
Right.
Because no matter what, there's always going to be someone.
No matter what,
it's going to be a losing war. There's going to be one guy. It's always a guy.
But for yourself, it's like, okay, what am I bringing to this? Who am I? Like what am I bringing to this? And sometimes you're not bringing shit. You're just bringing. They just need a guy that can do it well. So just play what's there, what's printed, and fucking, and don't
PSC, watch me for the changes, like
exactly
Back to the Future style.
Exactly. And just don't be a fuck up, and let's all get along, and we have a show to do tonight. We had a tour. Let's just go. So it wasn't until I became like a member of both of those things and actually started recording that I could bring something that was mine to it, but it's still somebody else's style.
You knew that you had something to bring to it too, and like knew what you can, because again, there's a difference between like, all right, let's roll the bones on this and see what's happening, and knowing what your strengths are, knowing what potential weaknesses you have, you need to shore up,
Yeah.
To make sure that that is not a problem. Like knowing it's a totally different skill set. We have not talked at all about how you actually came to play with Rise Against, which we should do. So tell me about that.
Well, so Rise Against GWAR, I quit GWAR, and a guy named Russ Rankin that was in a band called Good Riddance. Who they were a big Fat Wreck band, but I didn't know Russ very well. I didn't know, much about other than Hagfish having been on like subsidiary of Fat Wreck. I was from Texas. I didn't, I knew like some of those bands, and we had played. Hagfish had played with some of those bands, Lagwagon, bands like that, but we also played and toured with like, the Reverend Horton Heat or, whoever. We weren't like one specific type of band. Well, he called me to start a new band. He wanted to start a new band. He heard I could play and I could play certain styles. And he knew through Bill Stevenson because Bill had also been recording Good Riddance records.
God, the Descendants are just like this connecting thread with much stuff in the music world. People don't even realize, but anyway,
so much in my
especially
career.
Bill. But
in my career for sure. And so Bill had kind of vouched for me, and he wanted to start this new kind of super group thing. He already had a guy named Aaron Dahlbeck from the band Bane, which is another big hardcore band, and he wanted to be sort of like a Black Flag-ish type of thing, not really. What he had been doing with like the West Coast Fat Wreck punk sound. He wanted to be doing a little more aggressive. And I had just quit GWAR. So I was like, sounds good, because I guess his band Good Riddance were slowing down. And I fortunately was able to bring my brother into it because he didn't have a bass player. At the time, it was going to be Bane's bass player, but that didn't work out. And I was able to bring my brother into it. I always just wanted to play with my brother, from Hagfish and then Only Crime and but Bill Stevenson loved me and my brother because he loved Hagfish, and he was, he loved us as players. He loved us as people. Of course, we loved him. And he loved Russ from Good Riddance because he had been making Good Riddance records. So he's like, well, fuck, if you guys are starting a band at this point, Descendants or all, nobody was touring for him. Like this is before the Descendants had gotten back together. It's like 2003.
Yeah.
And he was like, I need to get out of the studio with these bands because I'm going nuts. I'm just telling bands, I'm tuning guitars and like trying to make records. He's like, but I can't tour a lot. I can't. And we were like,
but then we're talking about one of the best living drummers.
Exactly. So for us, it was like, we were going to be in Bill Stevenson's fifth band. It would be like Black Flag, Descendants, fourth band, not fifth. And us. So we were like, let's.
Yeah. Someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Exactly. And so Only Crime started, Fat Records put it out, and Rise Against took us on tour. And this is when they were just really starting their sort of slow trajectory. They were still in a van, but Bill had made Rise Against records. Yeah. He had made like 2 records by this point, or maybe just 1. Also, real good friends, family, the whole thing. So we all got along. They really liked my playing. They would come watch me play. And I could sense then they were having problems with their guy. They had made a major label record at this point. It was like they were kind of getting bigger. That was in 2005. And we all just stayed in touch. And so about the end of 2006, I started getting weird texts like, hey man, what's going on? And
right.
and the problem was now it was like Only Crime had just made our second record and we were about to go on tour. Yeah. And they, that was getting busy and that was happening, but I really wanted to play with these guys. It was way more for me. I've only ever wanted to just play music for a living. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I don't give a shit about anything else as an adult. I just don't care. This is all I care about.
It's probably better to do it with a successful band than not.
Exactly. And I liked them a lot. I liked them as people. Yeah. I liked their stuff. We really got along. There was something different about them that didn't sound punk rock music or quote unquote punk rock because of the Warped Tour and because of Fat Wreck and because of Epitaph Records. It was very sameness. A lot of it just sounded the same. Rise Against stood out. Tim, our singer's voice was different. There was something different about this band. And I think it was because they were from Chicago and not one of the coasts,
Completely different sensibility. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I really could see myself playing with them in it. And so when the opportunity came, I think it broke my brother's heart and broke Bill's heart, but they were really excited and happy for me because they knew that I wanted something more. Because again, Only Crime had gotten delineated to like pretty much a side project because Bill was so busy and he had started a family and all this stuff. And so that's how it started. That's how it happened. 2007, I started with them in January. So like the whole year. And then just never really looked back. I mean, goddamn, it just felt like I was jumping onto like a roller coaster that was, just speeding. And it's been like that ever since.
Yeah. That was kind of like right before, things started even to like go international and stuff for that band.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, the roller coaster to a certain degree.
Yeah, and that record was I toured with them for that entire. It was like they had just put out a record about 6 months before we finished touring that, and we made a record called "Appeal to Reason" that had still to this day the band's biggest single on it, and that was crazy to be in the eye of that. That was nuts.
Well, and you got kind of some, speaking of Nels Cline, some kind of Nels Cline kind of stuff going on that one, right? Like that's kind of like you're able to bring again what you do to this band and like really lay into it.
It was fun to kind of really try to find where I fit, because again they still had such a discernible like defined thing, and my thing was different. I mean, shit, I've had identity crises in certain bands because I'm like, what do I do? Like, who am I? Know I can play this material, but like, how do I make it me? And what is me? What do I sound like?
That comes back to like knowing your own voice and like trying to want to honor the what came before.
Absolutely.
But make sure it's still you. I mean, perfect example. Just invoke Pajo again. Andy Gill from Gang of Four.
Absolutely.
Dave Pajo is playing in Gang of Four. He does a great job, but it's like. That like when you make a list of guitar players that these are my favorite guitar players, Andy Gill would be on it because he changed the way I thought about it, just of like that rhythmic like punctuation and his phrasing, and it's like, well, you don't want to just do like an Andy Gill impersonation. Everyone would hate that. And he found a way to split the difference. And it's because he's amazing. He's an amazing player, and he managed to do it, and it's beautiful, but not that it's like that level of pressure. But you still have to kind of like replicate the sound of these past guitarists on these old tunes, or again, you're letting people down.
And going forward, it's like, okay, well, this band still sounds like this band. They had established. They have 4 records out when I joined, so I really did have to sort of curtail a lot of things I wanted to do because it just didn't fit. And for me, the last thing I had done that was like mine really was Hagfish.
Which was you in high school and beyond.
Exactly. And then I joined, the most established thing, which was GWAR, which was speed metal, which couldn't be even any different. So I got this like real great tutelage of being a guitar player, but not such a great tutelage of, my own voice and art. I just had to learn how to play other people's,
Well, and that's it's a useful skill to have,
Sure.
Don't get me wrong, but like if you're in a situation where you really want to have your own unique voice or signature, show up on Matt Sweeney's Guitar Move series or something, right?
Right.
Like,
right. And that's a great reference. And you're totally right. Because, there are all those guys you read about that are just career side guys, or like Tommy Thayer, who's in Kiss.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like, he's not bringing anything that's Tommy Thayer into that band. He is just going to be, you need to be a good guitar player, or the guys that play with Paul McCartney or whoever it might be. There are those, that's a career. And I've almost been sort of half and half, you know what I mean? My entire career, really.
Like a foot in both worlds. Yeah, for sure.
With this Dracula's project, I really got to figure out like who I am as a guitar player, like what do I want to write? Cause it's music I wrote, and like, this is my favorite guys. And, my guys are Geordie Walker and Keith Levine and Andy Gill. And, those are my guys. So I got to like bring that in. I couldn't have brought that in to Rise Against. I couldn't have brought that into GWAR. I couldn't have brought it into Only Crime, even though we were like writing those songs together. There was a very like discernible thing of what Only Crime is going to be. And it was more Greg Ginn-ish, I guess, if you had to put, which that's also one of my guys, but
but it's a different, I mean, again, you're going, when you talk about what is experimental, right? Like there's experimental where it's like, oh, this is the band pushing the boundaries of what they're doing. And then there's something like I Love Them, but Liars, where they're just like, okay, you had a thing, everyone liked it, and now it's a totally different thing that's also cool, but people are confused. Like it's almost too far. And so you're going to get all the people that are down with literally anything you do, and everyone else can be like, "Is this the same band?" What,
exactly. And I respect that too. I respect it when bands reinvent themselves and do
The Fall. All right,
absolutely,
great.
absolutely. Peter Gabriel. I mean, he's Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's and
Crimson, King Crimson.
oh my God, see, that's a great reference. It's a great reference.
Yeah.
And I'm a fan of all Crimson, all of it.
Yeah.
I love the '80s Crimson with Adrian Bellew Crimson. I love
that jazz chorus.
yeah,
so good.
Yeah, so good.
No, I love that. That's actually probably the era I listened to the most.
Me too.
Frankly.
Me too. Frame by frame, can't beat it.
Yeah, it's good.
Can't beat it.
Solid.
But I've never really been in a project like that. I think I've always wanted to be in a project like that.
Yeah.
And I still one day want to be in a project like that. But I still, that's the thing. I'm still searching. I think we all are, really.
There's still time. I mean, anything like, and I hate to be reductive enough to just say prog, but anything prog, it's not based on youth.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, look at
Peace
Fripp.
and love. Peace and love.
Yeah, peace and love. Look at Fripp, though.
Yeah. He's like, hanging out with his wife, and they're busting loose these covers for like Facebook. What is it on? Like, I don't know. I see they pop up on all the things. I'm like, oh, there they are. They're having a good time.
Is this wife Toya Wilcox?
From speaking of Oregon Music War? Yes.
Yeah. Toya. Yes, exactly. It's a good performance. And I mean, fucking the Melvins.
Yeah, of course.
I want to live in a world where those guys are doing it well into their 70s, or
Sure.
I want to live in that world. Yeah.
Well, because there's something to be said for that, but there's also there's the art side, right,
Sure.
of things, and the creative fulfillment, and then there's also the give and take that comes with an audience, and some part of again any bigger band. You're going to have some, unless you're Tool, there's going to be some expectations by the audience to, that they're going to want to hear the songs that they want to hear. And
sure.
Do you have to kind of dig down on some of the older songs and sort of like rediscover why it's good or why you like it?
Yeah. Because and figure out what resonates with you about every one of them. Maybe it's I like playing the bridge. It could be as simple as that.
Right. You're waiting until you get to the part that you really love, and like, oh, that's gonna be awesome
because you weren't there. You don't have any
sure.
any sort of a signature on it. Nothing about it is you. You don't own any part of it, and I mean emotionally,
Yeah.
And so I found that because I have played in so many people's things, you do have to find the thing that resonates with you, because it's pretty obvious, at least with me, I play with my face. You know what I mean? Like I'm a very, you know what I mean?
Sure. You're an expressive player. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if I'm just standing there kind of like staring into the mid distance, like it's pretty obvious. Like, I'm just kind of clocking in right now.
Yeah. You're not, well, I was going to say punching the clock. Yeah. but it's,
Exactly.
it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that there's nothing especially thrilling about that song for you in that moment in time,
I'll never,
play something 900 times. Let's see you be excited about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
but
there's gonna be someone in the audience. It's the first time they've ever heard it, and they're like beyond.
That's
stoked,
the thing. Every
right?
night there's somebody there is the first time they've ever seen it.
Yeah.
And you kind of, you're playing for that guy. I'll never bitch about my job. Like I'm fucking, my job is on a rainbow with a unicorn, and I breathe a rarefied air, so I will never fucking complain about that, because I am not qualified to do anything else. So,
right. Yeah, well, you enter that very small club of it's a good thing I'm good at this.
It's crazy. Yeah, no shit.
I didn't. Rise Against played the what was that? When We Were Young Fest, right? How is that? How are those kinds of things? Because I'll never know, because I'll never go to it. Peace and love.
It's peace and love. It's weird. I mean, I wouldn't either. And peace and love. But it's strange because, Rise Against started, and a lot of its fan base came from that era and from, the Warped Tour. The thing about that thing is, though, a lot of those bands broke up, and our band kept going.
And kept changing and doing new stuff.
Kept changing, kept putting out records, and kept reinventing it. So I've really kept, and really didn't stick with, yes, you could still say that Rise Against is based in punk rock or hardcore music or whatever, and it is, and we still play some fast songs and stuff, but it is a loud rock guitar band. That's just all there is to it. It's radio rock, and we're one of the bands that we could play with those ilk. We could also just play with other rock and roll, and we could tour with Guns N' Roses. We tour with the Foo Fighters. We could,
Yeah.
And I love that about our band, and because it opens up our horizons. But so to get asked to do something like that, I feel like is a bit reductive and a bit like, hey, you remember the aughts,
Yeah. Wasn't that, remember? Everybody
Yeah.
remember? Like, I just keep thinking of that meme. It's an old one now, but it's like the caveman. It says, remember? And it's like, fire.
Yes. It's like those K-Tel commercials. It felt like the K-Tel commercial. Well, it's like, let's get all these bands together from this, that you remember, and let's whatever.
Remember when you were cool and didn't
Right.
and were like a suburban dad? Great, come on
So
out.
I feel like that as a genre is pretty reductive, but I also understand from a promotion side of things. If I was a promoter, I'd understand that like that's a part, like the big business and it needs to happen. I feel like if our band was just reduced to those sorts of things, to be like, let's put you on these bands that toured, you guys all used to tour together, instead of still pushing ourselves and trying to rate my relative music and do different things. And I would be pretty depressed.
It's like Devo on Cruel World, right?
Exactly.
Where it's like they're far more interesting, intelligent band than a lot of the other acts that are on there that are not just like, oh yeah, I hear those on the 80 station all the time.
Exactly. And I am not trying to sort of pat ourselves on the back and say that we're any more sort of relevant than anybody else. I'm not.
No.
I'm just saying, for me personally and stylistically, I don't think of us as just one of those bands, when some of those bands got back together just to do that festival,
just to do the thing, and then like
Right.
whatever that sparks, just like that's the end of it, or maybe it starts something new, who knows. But like, again, but there's some equity there in the fact that like it's going to be to provide an experience for someone to see music that they deeply connect to and is meaningful to them. So obviously you're never going to be mad at that part, but it is also like
absolutely
the nostalgia industrial complex too,
Well, and there was a lot of, exactly. And there was a lot of people that said that they had never seen us, and that, they came because it was like a lot of people, concerts are expensive, and getting to Vegas is expensive. So for some fan that loved our band and that was like their way to, then great. But, it makes me think of a story. I think it was, might have been Cody Willis or it was one of the big business guys when they were touring with Melvins.
Yeah.
And they said that, I believe it was Buzzo, they played one of those festivals, but it was like their version of one of those festivals. So it was all the grunge acts and like, all of the ones that were touring at the time. And it was pretty much When We Were Young, but
with the grunge version of that. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I guess Buzz kind of taught him a lesson. He was saying that Buzz had taught him a lesson. Could have been their bass player. There was this interview.
Jared does.
And he was saying, the difference between us and all these bands is that we are still out here doing it. We're still pushing ourselves. Right. We're still, and I'm misquoting, but we're still changing things up. We're still making relevant art. We're still, we have you guys in our band right now. We're still pushing ourselves. We're not just going, remember what we used to sound like, and here it is still, and I always wanted to be a part of something like that.
Yeah. I mean, because if you look at, and I'm not going to do myself a disservice by naming names, but like a band that would be playing that, like they wouldn't think to have like, oh, let's have a second drummer.
Exactly.
That's also equally badass. And then these guys will like operate as a unit to do like what?
Right.
No one would think. And that was like, and when Senile Animal era, Jared brought like harmony.
Yeah.
To like what they were doing, like for the first time. And that also corresponds with them working with Toshi. But like there are all these huge changes that like, Catbutt isn't doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're totally right.
Because
sometimes you just don't have to. You put out something relevant and cool 20 years ago, and people want to hear that record or whatever it might be.
It's great. Fine. It's great. I mean,
go do it.
Yeah.
But the Melvins never went away, and
never stopped. Right.
Yeah.
And you could say that like, oh, I'm not into that record, or like I'm not interested in that. Well, fine, but they're still doing it.
They're still doing it, and they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to put out a record next year, and they're going to keep. And that record might have a horn section. Who knows? But
and maybe there's one song you like on it, right? But it's like, no, but check it out. Like, I mean, they're not going to stop. Why should they? Why should they?
And so just by that reasoning and by that ethic alone, maybe they don't fit in with those bands other than the fact that they all put out records in like 98 or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and you got a bunch of dudes waiting around to see her Honey Bucket. Okay, great.
Exactly.
It's a great tune.
Exactly.
But like, it's again, it's not necessarily about playing to the expectations, but it's okay for there to be expectations as long as it doesn't, as you can reconcile with your worldview. Because again, it's going to be people that this is the first time they've ever seen the band.
And that's
maybe it's the only time they'll ever see the band. Who knows? I don't know what these people's lives are like, right?
And there are people that got into us during that period that's what we mean to them. We mean high school for them. We do, it's something like that. And however you're coming out and seeing our band and whatever we're doing for it, then I champion it. That's amazing.
There's no wrong way to.
There's no wrong. But I just don't want. I didn't want to play one of those things and be defined by that type of thing, or be that band that was like, only relevant because we did something 20 years ago or something like that.
Absolutely. And that's a huge difference.
Totally.
Another thing I want to mention with Rise Against was that Sonic Highways World Tour. There was that that was such an interesting. It was such an interesting project. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but it was such an interesting project. Again, that a band at that level, you don't need to do something like that.
Right.
You really don't.
Right.
It's just and for my taste, I'm like, okay, if you're going to go to a place to go record, why don't you just use the stuff that's there?
Yeah.
Because that's part of the studio. So that's my quibble with it. But it's so great in this era of the studio being denigrated almost because the advent of home recording, that to celebrate vibe and to celebrate these places that all this amazing music was happening and have that inform whatever the songs that those guys did that week. Yeah. So cool. And then now we're going to do the thing that a gigantic rock band does. And we're going to go on this world tour, but we're going to bring people in and bands that we want people to see and that are part of this experience along with it. I thought that was super cool. That was
so cool.
You don't need, he did not need to do that. He
didn't. And our leg of it was Mariachi El Bronx, so not even the Bronx. It was
the mariachi version, right? Yeah, right. I crashed in the drummer's bed once when we played at Thorner Blows. Right. Time ago. Right. Actually, they opened for us.
Oh wow!
Not Mariachi Bronx. That was the Bronx. Never mind. Sorry. Anyway, nobody cares. Moving on.
Well, and it was just such a cool thing to be a part of. And for us, we were a headlining band at that point and all that shit.
Yeah.
And to get asked by the world's largest rock band to go out tour, we were so happy and so thrilled, and to be just a small part of any of that, and just to see how it all worked. Because their guitar player Chris Shiflett, who I had on my podcast, I've known that dude for 30 years from the Fat Wreck Punk days. He was in a band called No Use for a Name.
No Use for a Name, yes.
Yeah. And so to sort of and we've stayed in touch, but to be inside of that with him and just be like, dude, holy shit, And him to be like, thanks, man. It's still crazy. He'd been in the band forever at that point, but it's still crazy to him how large it all is.
You're playing shows that have 40,000, 50,000 people.
Yeah.
That is. I've always said I would love to do that just once, even if everybody there. I always say hey, we're just we're in the way of everyone's favorite band. Just so you know,
right? It's
set your expectations accordingly.
That's what I was going to say, because that's we thought we were pretty big at that point, and then you play something like that in front of that band, you realize how much work you still have to do, because the whole crowd is looking at you like, who in the fuck are you? They don't know your name. I think you play maybe a song they know, and they kind of go, oh, you're that band, and then that's it. Get the fuck off the stage.
Right. They're just sitting there cross arms, impress us. Okay, well, all 50,000 at once, huh? All right, let's let's give it a whirl.
I guess let's do it.
And you have to be. I feel like you have to have a strong core,
right,
to make that happen.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that but that was a good experience overall, right?
It was an amazing experience. And then he took us, they asked us to do Australia with him.
Yeah.
Which is, amazing.
Yeah. And it's again, using a platform that you have to just kind of elevate cool things. I feel like, that should be more common. You don't have to do it, but it should be more common.
Yeah.
So I think that. So tell me. So real quick. So Dracula's is still coming together, right?
Dracula's started in 2013.
Yeah.
Rise Against had the year off. My best friends are in a band called the Riverboat Gamblers from here in Texas.
Okay.
And bass player has been my best friend for almost 30 years. Singer is one of my best friends. We had a podcast together called Zach and Mike Make Three. It was ridiculous just us talking shit to each other. And anyway, so we started this thing because I had these songs written. They were like garagey Hagfish mixed with Devo, and I didn't have an outlet for them. It wasn't right for Rise Against, So we started this thing, and it's the Draculas. The whole concept is like the Draculas were a street gang in the movie The Warriors, but they were just off camera. So
fantastic. I love it.
And so Mike is just one of the greatest frontmen in the world. And so there's a whole performance dress up thing. It's like, it's a whole thing. So they tour quite a bit, and I don't get to do that, but we've made the first record. We've made a few EPs, 7 inches and records. There's 2 full lengths out. One is called Raw Wave. It's on the great Dirt Nap record label out of Portland.
Oh yeah.
Well, actually now it's out of, Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin.
He moved to he's moved to Milwaukee. He's in this side of town.
Oh, that's right.
I still have yet to meet that dude, even though he lives in the same town as me.
He's great.
He came. I think he came to our show with Poster Children, but I didn't.
Oh, right. I love.
And I was like, God, why did you say hello? What the hell? But
I love the Poster Children.
Oh, so good. Yeah,
so good. I saw them in the early '90s, opening for I believe it might have been Swerve Driver, Quicksand or Swerve Driver. It was fucking great. Anyway. Yeah. So then Dine Alone out of Canada put out the last record, and we just finished a new record, and we're kind of putting finishing touches on that. But awesome. Mike will be touring that, so it's just called The Draculas. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And is what else you have got? So tell. You know what? Let's reset. Talk to me more about Anti-Heroes. So this is 3rd season. You guys do seasons, I know, but
yes, we do. So we're coming up on the 5th. We're going to start the 5th while I'm in Australia.
Let me catch up. Apparently, I don't listen. Here's a secret. I don't listen to many other shows.
Yeah.
I'll pop in now and again, but
I have a handful.
Yeah, I have a few that I'll. Yeah, exactly. What do you want to?
Yeah.
If you're if you're a short order cook, do you want to be cooking in your spare time? I don't know. Maybe you do, but sometimes maybe you do. But maybe you don't. And for me, when I do listen to podcasts, it tends not to be music podcasts. That said, I've listened to at least 3 or 4 episodes of your show, usually depending on the guest. I always enjoy it. I think it's good.
Thank you so much.
It's got a voice, which is something that most podcasts do not have.
No, you're right. Well,
and it's entertaining.
I listen to yours as well, and I really appreciate that. You should listen to the one I did with my brother, because we get in a brother argument over a bass, and it's pretty funny.
I'll definitely listen to that, because I listened to your brother on Randy's show, which is one I do listen to, and one of the reasons why is because which is funny because we played many of the same venues as No Age. And I think we even played the same thing, but on a different day. But we never had met for whatever reason. And Toshi hooked us up, and I was a guest on his show first. And I just love the idea of the hyphenate. I love the idea of it being it's people that are good at more than one thing. Great.
Yeah,
that's a great concept. What a great concept. And so I listened to your brother's episode also, which I thought was really good. And I
amazing.
Didn't know half that stuff, so I'll definitely check.
My brother he's a dynamo, man. He is. Like I said, I don't have a hobby. Well, he has a lot, and one of them being martial arts, and it's just nuts.
Yeah, that was crazy. But what he got out of it, and how he articulated it, I thought was so cool. And he seems like it's really kind of helped him sort of rebuild his mind almost.
It really has. It's it is awesome. His. We weren't raised with religion at all. If anything, we were raised with no religion, atheist. But it really has become a spiritual thing for him. If anything, and it is almost his religion. So he swears by it. It's one of those things. If he doesn't do it, he's upset.
Right, and good on him for knowing that.
I know
that's
I know. I'm really proud of him.
To find that level of knowledge about yourself is so important, I think.
Totally. He's also the best musician I know and all that stuff. He's definitely a multi-hyphenate. Let's put it that way. And I'm not.
Sure.
I was on Randy's show. It was just because I I play guitar professionally, and I have a podcast that talks about guitar play.
That
You know what I
counts.
mean?
Those are
I
two
guess
things.
You're
you know?
right. You're right. You're right.
I mean, like whatever. Like, I like when, like he was laughing when we were like listening to the stuff I was doing. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think of it that way.
Yeah.
And most people that are don't think of it that way. So they're just like
You
they're
also
in it.
curate a festival, correct?
We are. Counterball is spinning up big time
That's
right now.
right.
So.
That's
And
right.
yeah, like it's. I'm on a movie show too, like which is just like that was
What?
like yeah, and every week, and actually we're doing Fitzgeraldo tomorrow.
Oh.
And at the time of this recording, and Billy Gold's coming on. I drag all my rock and roll friends in
No shit.
from Faith No More. And
So wait, you do a music like you do a it's a what is it? It's a you take on a movie and then do what?
yeah, we talk about the movie. That's it.
That's
It's like
amazing.
a panel of people. So I co-host that. I'm not the host of it. I co-host and help produce that. But like I'll forget about stuff I do because for me it's just being deep in it with creativity. Like
Sure.
I'm not the well. Have you checked it? All this, here's the scroll and it like rolls onto the floor like a cartoon and goes out the door. And it's like I don't think about that way at all. Like I'm just
Right. You just want to stay busy.
just and again, this show started as like, well, I want something to do between tours.
Right.
That's literally
Yeah.
it. And I was and at the time I was like, there's no show. This is the kind of show I want to hear. I have this show
Right.
I want to hear in my head. And I'm not hearing it, so I'm just gonna make it. Which is how I started with music too. Of like, I'm hearing this music that I want to hear, and I'm gonna start.
Just gonna try
do
it. Just start it. Yeah.
And-
Do you miss
and
Do you miss California?
I do. I don't miss the cost.
Yeah.
like living in the Midwest buys you a lot of freedom.
Sure.
So that said, we have been in a real nasty winter cold snap. And
Yeah,
it's sort of like every time I walk out the door, I'm like, right. Okay.
I was just in Chicago the day before yesterday, actually, and
Yeah.
it was below zero.
No,
It's
it was. My man, when your nostrils freeze, that's when like it is cold.
Yeah. Well, that's when you're also in danger of like real frostbite and shit.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
Though, you know.
So that's where I'm just like, look, for the price of like a this 2-bedroom like small apartment in Oakland, we have this gigantic house with a basement where I got the studio, got like the band
Yeah.
area, we got a garage, there's like 2 yards, like it buys a lot of freedom, and
Sure.
you have different goals in life, and for a long time it was like, oh, this is like a base for touring, right? Like
Yeah.
easy Midwest. It was
Yeah.
so easy to tour in the Midwest. It's so easy.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And look, I came up from Oakland, California. 6
Yeah.
hours LA, 10 hours to Portland.
Yeah.
And we would, start off doing weekends and stuff. And like when you come up that way, that's coming up hard as far
Yeah,
as
it
touring
is.
goes.
Sure.
So therefore, I don't. It's been good. Will we be here forever? I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
All I know is I'll never live somewhere super expensive again.
Yeah, it was hard.
It wasn't when I moved to Oakland in '95.
Yeah.
As a 17-year-old boy, it was not super. Like we had it was a 1-bedroom apartment. It was like $525 a month.
Wow.
Of course, we worked at the video store, and record
Yeah.
store respectively, making minimum
Sure.
wage. So I was like, oh my god, that's so much money.
Well, it's like Austin now too. Like, I mean, it is so expensive to live in Austin, Texas now, and you're paying to live in Austin, Texas. And I'm so thankful I do. But Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it becomes what what suits the lifestyle and what it is you're trying to do, right? Like
Right.
in some cases, you're like, well, I'm not taking advantage of the things that this city has to offer. Like, I would rather have the ability to, live easily and do the things that I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. As you're talking,
This should be a podcast in and of itself. I think.
in and of itself. I agree. I need to have you on my podcast.
I love that. That'd be great.
I want to talk to you about your electrical guitar company stuff, which I've talked about a lot on my podcast. Gear choices, all that bullshit.
I will talk about that. I did a thing, technically speaking, Secret Friends is an Earthquaker Devices artist. So I did Tony and I both did like huge like rig rundown. I don't even know if they're still there. I don't know if anyone looks at this stuff, but like, yeah, I love talking about that stuff.
We gotta do it.
I'm way in.
Yeah.
Zach, anything coming up that people should know about other than anti? This is just started out talking about your podcast, which I was saying is great, and there's a bunch of new stuff coming up, right?
Yeah. Well, Rise will be. Well, we're about to go to Australia with Blink-182 for a month. That's all of February. And then we are making a new record this year.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't know if I should say that. Maybe we need to cut that out. Yeah, and so
the idea that there would be a new record is not necessarily like
that's true. You're right.
You haven't said anything out of school.
Out of school. And so yeah, so we're doing that, and then we are also we've announced we have some festivals over the summer and some things like that I other things I can't really talk about yet. But yeah. We've announced some things, some big fests and things like that that'll be happening. It's this summer, so yeah, it's gonna be good, man.
If you're, and I didn't bother to look, but if you're playing anywhere near me, I'll go. We should definitely hang out.
Let's absolutely. Oh, and the Draculas will have a record coming out this year at some point. So
fantastic! Because when was the last one? What was the? It was like a few years ago, right?
It was called Terminal Amusements. It was out like 2020 actually, which was a terrible time to put it out.
4 years ago.
I know, man. I know. But I'll send you stuff.
I'd love that. That'd great. I mean, I remember actually now when you were talking about it, I remember that I had I had listened to and liked I guess it was an EP or something like something like one of the first things maybe.
Yeah. There's a 7-inch and there's an EP. Yeah.
Which is just funny what I forget. And then
me too, man. Me too. There's so much stuff.
Not funny so much as annoying. But anyway, that's
totally.
the joy of getting older, isn't it?
Totally, absolutely.
Cool. So anything else you'd like people to know?
No, I'm good. Other than that, just keep listening to the podcast if they're already listening or trying to go check it out. Just Anti-Heroes with Zach Blair.
I'll throw the podcast link in the show notes.
Thank you.
As well. It's always good to get some cross-pollination.
And for fans of this show, keep listening because you'll be on my show soon.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah. Talk about cross-pollination, am I right?
Let's do it.
Zach, last thing in the show, it's the only canned question that I ever ask, so you can choose to interpret it however you like. But why do you do what you do?
Why what?
Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Because I have to. I mean, at first it kind of started out, I think, just to impress my dad. I idolized my dad. My dad, like I said, was a classic rock radio DJ. He was obsessed with rock music and guitar music. I think I did it just to impress him. But I also, through DNA, just, I think I was born with his love and passion for all of this. It's all I've ever been interested in. It's all I've ever wanted to do. I mean, even like career day when I was 5, I just wanted to be a guitar player. And I was prepared to do it if I was going to be renting and have a house full of roommates and, no car and food stamps. Like I just thought that was going to be my life, but at least I was going to be an artist. At least I was going to be able to go play shows and be a guitar player and talk to guys like you about music. That's all I cared about. That's all I wanted to do. So it's still the fact that there's a level of success with something I joined is amazing. I never planned on that, but I did. I'd still be doing it had that not happened, So I think as cheesy as that might sound in short just terms, it's just because my body just does this, like it's almost like that there's a weird bug. It might be an ant that it kind of zombifies other bugs and like it eats their brain or whatever and then controls it. I feel like something happened and I just play music, I just drive to places and play music. And I don't think I don't ever want to stop. I want to die up there, As bleak as that sounds.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Zach Blair, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for
Conan Neutron. Thank you so much for having me. I was so flattered. You've had such a prestige of guests and to be included, like I said, I listened to the John Wright. I saw the Steve Bartek, Guy Picciotto, like all these people. And I was like, this guy wants to interview me? Jesus Christ. So thank you so much. It's so flattering that you listen to Hagfish, and anybody that listened to Hagfish is a soft spot in my heart. So we're friends for life.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I'll hold you to that.
All right. You got it, buddy.
Take care, brother.
Take care, Conan. Bye, man.
There goes the mighty Zach Blair. Let's actually listen to Dracula's, and then I'll play us out with some Hagfish after that, just for old time's sake. But here we go, Dracula's.
Really
All right, that was Hagfish with Happiness. A song I listened to a lot back in the day. We had Dracula's Whoa EP. That's what that's off of. First one, there's something new coming from there. That was a great Zach Blair. So please, if you listen to the show, you should probably check out Antiheroes. It's a good one. It's one of the good ones. Rise Against, GWAR, Only Crime. Great dude. Hope you guys enjoyed that. So, name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. Thank you ever so very much for listening to it. The show airs always Thursdays, and now sometimes Mondays. Usually 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. Streaming live on YouTube and Twitch. Podcasted later everywhere. Get it wherever you get your podcasts. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives. If you like the show and you want to get episodes sooner and you want to help support the show, Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal. That helps keep the lights on. And gets it sooner. It's just a darn nice thing to do that. Thank you for people that have signed up for that. Thanks to everyone for sharing the show around, liking, subscribing on your platform of choice, following, even just sharing a single episode. All of that helps people find the show. Beats back the almighty algorithmic overlords. It's just a darn nice thing to do, really. Lots of great stuff coming up. Stay tuned. I'm stepping up production. Seizing the means of production at the Podcast Factory. Thanks. Just thanks. We'll leave it at thanks. How about that? Be thankful. And stay safe out there.
Into electricity.
And check you later.
Can you hear me now? Out on Route 128, dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 See in the radio. any caller at all. Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency,